This video is brought to you by MoviePalette.com and enter ROOM15 for 15% off of your palette. Hey horror fans, welcome back to 1237, back with another review. As I continue my kind of run through or marathon of films based on real life serial killers. And I know I said I was going to try to do more of a variety, films of different killers. But this just came in the mail today. This is another film that has since gone out of print. I had to get it off of eBay. But it's one that I've seen before, and I was really curious as to my thoughts on it now versus when I first saw it. I've actually seen it twice before. Once probably about 11 years ago, then probably 9 years ago. And I remember not liking it either time back then. It is another Bundy film, which there's so many films on Bundy, and this isn't even the last one that tries to tell his story. And then you get all the other films that are based on certain points of Bundy's life, like No Man for God is about his death row confessions. Riverman and Ted Bundy and the Green River Killer is about him helping the FBI catch Green River, which didn't work. But this is the next to last one I have that tries to tell the story of the life and crimes of Ted Bundy. And I always thought it was just called Bundy, but I guess it actually is called Bundy: A Legacy of Evil, also known as Bundy: An American Icon. I've always just thought it was Bundy. I thought Legacy of Evil was the tagline, not the subtitle. And like the Michael Riley Burke film, I hate this cover. Whoever it is on the cover looks nothing like the actor that portrays the person, which in this case is Corin Nemec. Corin Nemec plays Bundy in this, whom I actually just picked up a film today called Chicago Massacre: Richard Speck, where he plays Speck, on top of another film I have called Speck. And I always keep forgetting that he was Harold in the 90s version of The Stand, the nerd that was in love with Molly Ringwald that turns evil. He's really good at just playing bad guys. And I know when I first saw this the first two times, I didn't really think he looked like Bundy. At certain points he does. His final Florida trial, he does. But I think it's his hair and his wardrobe that helps him more than anything. Especially right before his execution, where he's got the yellow prison suit that you see in his last interview. Times like that, he looks like Bundy. He does have similar features, more kind of sharp, pointy features, or kind of like when he smiles, he might look like him. The blue eyes. I'm not sure who might look like him the most. I've heard some people say him, but I've also read criticisms that he looks far too old to play a 20-year-old, maybe, because it does show him in college in the 60s as well. But going back, he's not bad. He's not the worst I've seen playing the killer. I do agree with what Brad Jones said in his review for Ted Bundy: An American Boogeyman, which is, I'm probably not going to review that one because that's more of it's a William Farron's film, so it's like a Tarantino-esque sort of alternate history. I hate to compare him to Tarantino because there's two opposite ends of the spectrum, but essentially that's what he does. He takes real life criminals or killers and like rewrites history a bit in a very terrible way. So that's almost completely fiction. Supposedly this is supposed to be like a dramatization. This feels more like Secret Life, Jeffrey Dahmer, which was my last review. Whereas it doesn't really have any key points, really. Or if it does, it's things surrounding the murders, more about his personal life. As far as the murders go, the only one that you can really pick out as, oh, that's who that is the Chi Omega murders. Which, it does get the date right. It does get two girls in the same room right. But even some things about Chi Omega it gets wrong as well. No Lake Sammamish, no, not that I could see, no Carol Durant, the young woman that he tried to abduct from the mall that got away and eventually picked him out the lineup, and that's what started the whole trials. On top of him getting picked up and finding the rape kit, which it does show that, and even that's altered. Um, it does show just sort of a killing montage, and I think it shows a girl getting away that had to have been Carol Durant, but it just kind of glazes over it. Mentions at some point, oh, wanted for trying to abduct a woman in Utah. But other than that, yeah, no Lake Sammamish, no great detail on Carol Durant. A little bit about Chi Omega. Actually, it's the bloodiest scene in the movie, but fact-wise, it's still off. Other than that, no Wildwood Inn ski resort or even him breaking into houses. It doesn't really show him doing that, except for Chi Omega. It shows him pretty much abducting all of them using his cast and crutch ruse. And even then, it doesn't. It shows a little bit of him out in the woods or the mountains. It mostly shows him in like a deserty terrain, which I don't know if that was ever the case. I don't think so. I think it was always in the woods. But so this is probably one of, as far as ones that depict Bundy's life, not certain eras or certain chapters of his life, but A Deliberate Stranger, Ted Bundy, this, Extremely Wicked. There is a TV version adaptation of this, which I also have that I'll get to. So of all the ones I've seen, this one might be the least accurate. This is more like Secret Life, where you kind of get the gist of what he was about as a serial killer, a little bit of facts sprinkled through, but the facts are more about his personal life. And I didn't pull everything that I have like I normally do because I've done it so much already. But, I've already reviewed the a Michael Riley Burke film, Deliberate Stranger, Extremely Wicked. I will get to Stranger Beside Me, No Man of God, and The Riverman. I have numerous documentaries, and I have about 24 encyclopedic books on numerous killers. But on Bundy himself, Conversations with the Killer, which I'll say it every time, just because I firmly believe it. Netflix needs to stop being so stingy and release DVDs of their original stuff. Because I would buy everything Conversations with the Killer. It's the best killer series out there, other than stuff that's on Peacock. The Encyclopedia of the Ted Bundy Murders, Al Cimino's book on Ted Bundy, and Ann Rule's Stranger Beside Me. Which, in fact, she's not addressed by name. Maybe she's credited. I didn't even see. It doesn't say on this. But it does show him working at a crisis center for a suicide hotline. There's a female co-worker. I'm guessing that's supposed to be Ann Rule. But it doesn't even give me. It was directed by Michael Pfeiffer. It doesn't even give me who did what, who also wrote the film. Sound by Andre Bolton. Doesn't say music. Both credits, I guess. Also produced by Michael Pfeiffer. Special makeup by Yvonne Wang. Costume designer Alicia Ridings. I will give her credit because his blue suit that he wears during his Florida trial looks good. The yellow that he wears, right before his execution looks good. And what I meant to say, as far as Corin Nemec's looks, which some people think he looks the most like Bundy, some people think he looks too old, and I thought it was so-so. I used to think he looked too much like a young Gary Oldman. I still kind of think that, but then when he gets his head shaved for his execution, he kind of looks like an older Joseph Gordon-Levitt. I think he looks more like those guys than he does Ted Bundy. But I guess the way he carries himself and everything, and when he does have like his turtlenecks and dresses like him, like I said, the wardrobe does help his performance. Also stars Kane Hodder, who's the warden of the death row prison that he's at. He's just credited as warden. David DeLuise as Detective Jennings. Shannon Pierce Wilkins as Louise Bundy. Which is David DeLuise. Yes, he's the son of Dom DeLuise. He looks just like him. I was wondering that. But anyway, so yeah, another serial killer film to have Kane Hodder. I'm surprised he didn't play Bundy. He plays Ed Gein and he plays BTK. Which I saw the trailer for his BTK film on this, and it doesn't look very good. Now, I did take notes through this, like I have been. One thing I'll say that's very different about this is, because I'm sure some people think, oh, there's like 6 Bundy movies, they're all the same thing. For the most part, yes, but this completely excludes his relationship with Liz Kendall or Klepfer or Kendall. His relationship with Liz. It focuses more on his relationship with Stephanie Brooks, real name Diane Edwards. It does shed a bit more not realistic, but factual light on, him finding out about his birth roots, even his home life before Louise met Johnny Bundy. So it does add some new stuff that hasn't been in a film before. And this really shows Bundy. This shows his insecurities, which I know that was a criticism Ann Rule had of The Deliberate Stranger. That Mark Harmon had everything, but he didn't have the insecurities that he was hiding. This really plays on that. And it plays on the theory that, him finding out, because he found out at the age of 14 that, the people he believed to be his parents and his sister was actually his grandparents and his mother. It might have been around college age where he found out he was illegitimate, but this plays it off like he was still in college when he still thinking, I was raised by my sister. Sort of finding that out and his legitimacy at the same time in college. But that mixed with being dumped by Stephanie/Diane as being the catalyst for this hatred towards women and why he went on his killing spree. Because, like, the last thing he did before he, I would say killed Linda Ann Healy on February 1st of 1974, he actually attacked Karen Sparks in January of 1974, but she survived. And that was, when he called it off with her, that was pretty much kind of the last thing he did. And the revenge was so sweet, but it wasn't enough. So, just to kind of go through my notes. Well, first, it opens up with him on death row, Kane Hodder giving him a tape recorder saying, hey, you owe it to the families, just kind of give us your story on this. And then it just cuts back to him with a victim, which I don't think he ever had a campsite with an RV out in the woods. And I don't know if his mode of abduction was tying them up and then sort of having like a rope leash that he can always pull them around in, but it shows him doing that. Then it cuts back to him at like 4 or 5 with, his mom and Johnny Bundy, kind of being pushed around by his grandfather Sam, and showing kind of a tumultuous, abusive household because of him. Bundy has always said that he had to leave it to Beaver life, but the rest of his family did say that Sam was an abusive, uh, a bully, except for with Ted. So, and I think this is the only movie to really shed light on that. That, his home life, other than the titles of, uh, family members, that it was kind of abusive, specifically with his grandfather. So it sheds light on that, and then it plays through from there up until we get to Death Row, and then we have more Kane Hodder. It doesn't go back and forth, but it shows him in 1966 where he first. It implies that this is where he first meets Stephanie / Diane. In this, she's named Stephanie. But then it hints that they've been dating for a little bit already, when in reality they met and started dating in 67. Then, of course, him finding out about, his roots. Did I? Oh, no, I didn't. But then it shows that he started killing in 71, like it says, 1971. His first confirmed victim was Linda Ann Healy on February 1st of 74. He has said that he tried kidnapping as early as 68 or 69. He might have had 2 victims around 71 or 72, but that was never proven. But yeah, this shows his entire killing spree, pre-arrest, pre-escapes, between 71 and 73. When in reality, it was 74, 75. That was his killing spree. At least until he escaped and went to Florida. So, that's a big inconsistency. Shows him using his crutches and his sling, even, putting the crowbar on top of the back tire to club him. His VW in this is red, not yellow like it's been, or like a metallic light brown like it was in real life. It does show that the front seat was taken out. It does show that. It does show him being dumped by Stephanie, and the way it portrays other people in this movie, you kind of can't blame him doing some of the things. Like when it shows how Stephanie dumps him because he had no ambition, he wasn't going anywhere in life, and, she had a wealthy background, and, Bundy kind of came from nowhere, and he had no ambition. But she does it in such a cold, mean way that when he finally rekindles with her and then dumps her the way he does, you're kind of rooting for him, which sounds weird, but like her and then the cop that first arrests him, they're really asshole characters. So I doubt Diane was this mean when she first broke up with him. And I don't know if that's their way of making it so you kind of believe why he turned out the way he did, or as kind of like a stab to humiliate Bundy, because, we know who he is. It's just kind of like a vicarious. I don't know what they were going for. But yeah, she was brutal when she broke up with him in this. I doubt she was that mean in real life. But, then it shows him in law school, being active in politics, especially on the campaign for governor candidate Davis, and becoming quite the rising star in politics and law school. So then it shows him in 73, I think it was, where he rekindles his romance with Stephanie in California, which was true. He found her in California in 73. It shows a little montage of them getting back together. Then in the movie, he proposes to her in front of everyone at a fancy restaurant. She says yes. He excuses himself, and he never comes back. In real life, they talked about marriage. He referred to her to people as his fiance, but then he ghosted her for like a month. And then when she got a hold of him saying, "Why you ghosted me? I thought we were getting married," he just said, "I don't know what you're talking about," and then just hung up. And that was it. Then he went on his killing spree. This shows him... the way it shows his killings, I mean, it is a bloody movie. It is more... I wouldn't say it's as much of like a slasher film as a Michael Riley Burke film. But it is unlike other serial killer films of this era where they don't either show the crimes or it like cuts away. But I mean, we see girls covered in blood. We see him, strangling or bludgeoning, especially the Chi Omega ones. And especially the montage where it shows him returning to a body dump site. And we see her decompose with maggots. It shows him looking under her dress and being like, because he used to return to the dump sites to play with them until they were too badly decomposed. It does show him with his collection of heads. I'm not sure how many he had at one time, but he did save 12 heads until they were too decomposed. It shows him with those. But he was in an apartment, not a cabin with a fireplace. It does... It's going to sound silly, but this is more like a mean-spirited one. It brings out his insecurities, like yelling at his victims as if they're Stephanie, which she's named in the film. Like, I am someone. I will be someone. I'm going to show you. I'm going to show all of you. It's your fault. And, he has him on that leash and drags him around, clubs him with the crowbar. But it's a very brief period in the film. It shows him driving around drunk, which it does show him drinking a lot, which a lot of times he was quite drunk to lower his inhibitions, be more brave. He's drunk, passed out, cop comes up, checks him out, it's daylight. And it's when the cop starts looking around that he arrests him. Excuse me. In real life, it was nighttime. He was swerving around. And it said 1973, but I believe it was 75 when he first got arrested, pulled over. And then when, the cop was looking around, found his rape kit with the ski mask, crowbar, handcuffs, nylon stocking. It does show him explaining why he has all that stuff, which he did do. But he arrests him anyway. And then I thought it was really weird because then it skips right to 1977. No first escape. Again, no Lake Sammamish, no Carol DeRange, no Wildwood Inn. It just skips right from there to 77. January 31st of 77. I'm guessing, if we take that clip in the montage of the girl getting away, we put together that, it came to light that, he was the one that tried to abduct her. They linked all the stuff in this kit to the murders, and he was convicted. It doesn't come out and say that. It almost makes it look like he was in jail that long for having that stuff. But it shows his prison escape where he goes through the skylight or the ceiling light into the air duct, crawls through, down and out. It says January 31st of 77. In real life, it was December 23rd of 77. And in this, it shows him coming out in the main hallway right in front of the door where he just drops and runs out. In real life, he made it to the guard's locker room, changed into civilian clothes, and then walked out. Also, it said Garfield County Jail, where he was in Glenwood Springs. Later on in the movie, it says he escaped twice. It only shows us once. It doesn't show the first escape to the courthouse, the 2-story window. It also doesn't say Tallahassee or Florida. It just says January 15th, 78, which is when Chi Omega happened. It shows him walking in. He goes into the room of Lisa Levy and Margaret Bowman. The only victims that have names, no one else has a name, no one else even has a fake name. They're just nameless victims. And it doesn't show him with the log of wood that he took from the stack outside. There's a bat in their room. It shows him hitting one and the other. It shows him in a frenzy. It does show him sexually assaulting one of them, which he did, and then he left. In reality, he did do that, but he bludgeoned 2, but strangled one of the ones he bludgeoned. Then he went on and bludgeoned 2 more, but they survived. It doesn't show him biting the ass cheek of the one he assaulted, which those bite marks was pretty much the evidence that essentially crucified him. But it does show him going a few blocks away, 8 blocks away to Cheryl Thomas's house. Now, he bludgeoned her, but she survived in real life. Here, made it look like he killed her, bludgeoning her with the phone. And, I mean, he looks like he's in a frenzy, but the scene looks like it takes too long, like he's taken too long to amp himself up with the bat, where the whole ordeal at Chi Omega in real life lasted about 15 minutes. No, he was in a quick frenzy. No Kimberly Leach, no final victim, no 12-year-old victim. It doesn't even mention it in the trial at the end, so they skip right over that. It does show him in court, which in fact, the quote that you can see in documentaries, like when he says, well, right now, I'm going to leave it to the one man I trust the most, and that man is myself. That's almost verbatim, but he said that outside, not in the hallway of the courthouse. It shows him being his own attorney, but it pretty much just shows him kind of fumbling and having outbursts, not really being that good or talented or smart in law. But it does have the witness, which is this detective, detailing what he saw at the Chi Omega house, showing that Ted wants to hear the details again so he can relive it, which is believed of what he was doing. Then at the very end of that, Judge Cowart's "take care of yourself" speech is almost verbatim. So, when he says, it sure is a tragedy. You're a bright young man. You would have made a good lawyer. I would have loved to see you practice in front of me. But you went a different way, partner. Take care of yourself. I mean that. Take care of yourself. It kind of doesn't go with how bad he was shown at being a lawyer. He kind of just, which really, he was good at sounding like he was a good lawyer, which the movie kind of does. But it does show his outbursts. So Judge Cowart's speech was pretty much verbatim. But it also goes with how it said he escaped twice, but it only showed once. And then we just cut back to death row with Kane Hodder trying to give him the tape recorder again. It shows him refusing his final meal of steak and eggs. It doesn't show them shaving his head, but his head is shaved. It's more dramatic. It's not straightforward like the Michael Riley Burke film. It's like slow motion. You see him crying, sad music. It almost like it's trying to make you feel bad for him. Kind of has this strobe look, like black, like shot then black kind of strobe effect when he's being electrocuted. Shows his mother having to be carried out. Shows him taking the hood off, which again, him in the yellow looks good. That looks, especially before they shave his head, looks like what you would see in the last interview. Then it just cuts to a shot of him walking down the desert road, throwing rocks, expecting like a final text, but it doesn't say anything. I guess it tries to do some kind of artsy stuff. At points, it'll cut back to this oversaturated look of him as a young boy playing around with a horse on a stick. Or like when Stephanie first breaks up with him and he's standing there like yelling at her or yelling to her. It'll like freeze frame on like certain angry emotions, I guess, to capture all these kind of. I kind of took it as capturing just these fierce looks of anger as it was building up. But it also freezes on him being like sad that she's gone, so it's like a whirlwind of emotions that it's trying to capture. It does do stuff like that, but I mean it's 95 minutes, but it actually goes by at a pretty fast pace. But I definitely can't recommend it if you want the Bundy story, because like I said, it doesn't really have a whole lot that's accurate other than stuff about his personal life. Stuff about the crimes, the only real accurate thing would be Chi Omega, and even that's not the full story. I would liken this to something like the Dahmer Secret Life film, where it does feel like it's a more fictionalized account. Wow. A more fictionalized account. Again, I wouldn't like Secret Life. I wouldn't quite put it to the level of fictionalized as, say, Henry Portrait of a Serial Killer. But it's accurate enough to be like, okay, this is the kind of killer that Bundy was. But as far as the story itself, yeah, this is one of the less accurate ones. I do appreciate Cora Nemec's performance this time around than I used to. I would still put Mark Harmon above him. I would put Zac Efron above him. It might be tied with Michael Riley Burke, but for different reasons. I think Burke had the charm. I think this had the rage and the insecurities. I do think he looked more like Bundy than Burke did, but I think Burke might have had an all-around better performance. But other than that, there's not too much to say about it. I am glad that I have it. I'm glad I got to see it again. I didn't know it went out of print. I found it for cheap on eBay. That's probably where you'll have to get it if you want to pick it up. But yeah, this is the next to last Bundy film as far as his story. The last one, which would be the adaptation of this, which Andrew produced. Other than that, it's just chapters of his life, like No Man of God, or The Riverman. Again, I'm not going to do American Boogeyman. I don't know if I'm going to get Ted Bundy and or versus The Green River Killer. I know it's kind of the same movie as The Riverman. I'm not sure which one is a better quality film. But I think I'll hold off on Stranger Beside Me for a bit and try to get back into more of a variety. I do want to do, sooner than later, I do want to do the Kemper film that I have, the Robert Hansen film that I have, Frozen Ground, which I have seen. I remember not liking it. The Albert Fish film that I have, the Brian Dennehy, John Wayne Gacy film. I have about 30 plus films in total, so I have around 20 more to get to. It's just a matter of when I do them. So I'm not sure what one I'll do next. A couple of them are from Uwe Lamel, which we'll see how that goes. But so yeah, this might be the last Bundy film for a bit. Although I do want to check out No Man of God, because I heard that actually was a pretty good film. So stay tuned for a bunch more serial killer films, and thank you for watching.